I've been here since 1997. Founded Lanky and Limey Limited in 2001. We work in the entertainment business, essentially we're a production company, but produce events. Moved into the safety space really in earnest, kind of 2007, 2008-ish, give or take. And then from there, it was really just a natural progression that, you can't get into safety without learning about OSHA. And so we learned more about OSHA, and we decided we wanted to actually know. Instead of people telling us what OSHA was about, we wanted to go to people who actually knew what OSHA was about. So that's how we ended up with you. One of the reasons that I ended up on the West Coast is because we, pre-COVID, we travel a lot. And so I am often, on the West Coast, in San Francisco and that kind of area working. In terms of training, well, we obviously offer the OSHA 10, OSHA 30 for construction and general industry. But we also offer training in mental health and resilience. We offer training in emergency planning and response, COVID safety, and then all of the kind of unique things to the entertainment industry, like entertainment rigging, entertainment electrical systems, those kind of things, crowd management, things of that nature.
So you said you started your company in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
But when was it safety in the beginning, or you weren't? That was later, right?
No, so I started back in the UK in the very early 2000s, late 80s. And I came to the US in 97. And I'd been basically touring West End, which is the equivalent of Broadway, West End musicals, that kind of stuff, working for opera companies. And what was interesting was that the safety conversation in the UK was just starting to happen right as I left the UK. I mean, to put it in perspective for you, one of my employable skills when I was young was my willingness and ability to climb to 60, 80 feet in the air without a harness or any form of fall protection and wrap myself around and do stuff, you know what I mean? So we got very good in the UK at killing people at events. And so the government stepped in a lot sooner in terms of specifically focusing on the entertainment industry. Also, and I include in the entertainment industry sports and all of that stuff, right? Because in terms of crowds and stuff like that, we had some significant incidents. For example, Hillsborough, which was a football match where the supporters got crushed in a crowd crush. There was just incident after incident after incident. And the government's kind of stepped in and said, you've got to do this, this, and this. And as you probably know, HSE, or Health and Safety Executive, is the equivalent of OSHA in the UK. So when I came over to the US in 97, I kind of restarted all over again because, nobody knew who I was. Why would they? And I started off working in off-Broadway, off Broadway, and then moved into Broadway, and things like I worked at Madison Square Garden for a while, Radio City, those kind of places. In terms of my safety journey, I mean, I make the joke that the safety conversation chased me across the Atlantic, and I thought, well, I better do something about this. And the truth is, actually, what first got me into risk and risk analysis is that I'm also a dive instructor and a scuba diver. And I do something called technical diving, which is obviously outside of the realms of what you might see going on holiday in the Caribbean. And what I started to learn as part of my training is that people think that, that kind of diving is an adrenaline-based sport. And really, it's actually a mission-focused based sport. So in order to go down to depth, you are having to do checklists, you're having to do skills training, you're having to do drills, you have redundant systems. And so you have to you don't necessarily get taught risk analysis as an individual skill, but what you do get to learn is how to read people, what they are. Because one of the things we say is, no problem on the surface gets better underwater, right? And
I'm sure of that.
And when you're underwater, if you're getting into a situation, the first thing they teach you is stop, breathe, think, and then act, which is, you've got all sorts of variations of that in emergency response and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it gave me some understanding of exposure to risk, right? And what it meant to not take care of the chance that you could have a life-changing injury or die. And then for me, it was a kind of a slow process in the industry, because you got to remember, from an industry perspective, I mean, I started the safety stuff in the industry probably, where are we now, 2020, probably 2008, 2009, somewhere in that realm. And that's in addition to the kind of stuff we already did. But my point is, I can tell you, before that point, I didn't know anybody that wore PPE, period. And we started introducing that, and you would think we had tried to change the Constitution. You know, we had a lot of resistance to that. Yeah, so it was a negotiation, right? And we started to, and I was, you know, we as a company were one of the few people doing it. And of course, that made us different in the sense that it actually made us less competitive in some ways, because, you know, people were hiring people on the basis of cost, of course. And it, you know, but they weren't comparing the entire picture. And then I forget what year it was, because, you know, but I think it was relatively recently. So I'm talking in the last 10 years. But there were two major incidents in the US. There was the Station nightclub fire in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was horrific.
So that was in 2003. And then there was the Indiana State Fair collapse, which is, I want to say 2013-ish.
I'm not familiar with that story.
So basically, it was this Indiana State Fair had happened for, you know, a long time, and I may be getting some of the details mildly incorrect here, but essentially, the entire stage roof collapsed and killed several people and injured a lot. And essentially, you know, keep in mind that prior to that point, I think it was 2011. Elisa is texting me quietly, so I know what I'm talking about. And 2011, basically, prior to that point, there really wasn't a lot of awareness in the industry of how weather worked. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be trained by somebody called Kevin Closell, who works over at the in Oklahoma and is connected with the National Weather Service and Oklahoma University. And basically, he likes to refer to reading your phone for weather, you know, for weather updates as nowcasting. It's not forecasting. It's as useful as looking outside the window,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And just to give you some perspective, we had no understanding in the industry as a whole at that point that there are something called gust fronts that precede storms by 10 plus miles. And what actually blew the roof structure down was not the storm itself, but those gust fronts that preceded. So they seemed to come out of nowhere. And the sad thing was, you know, nobody was doing anything differently from what they had done in previous years. And again, the details are a little hazy in my mind, but essentially there were a series of decisions that were made that meant people continued with the show. And as a result, people were exposed. Some people were up working in the rig itself. The band were, you know, the performers were being put under pressure to go on. And of course, the crowd was not evacuated. And so when the structure fell, people got injured. Indiana then, of course, wanted to institute all sorts of laws and things around the entertainment industry safety. And there was a group of folks, Jim Digby, Steve Edelman, and I think Don Cooper, who got together, and a couple of others that I'm sure I'm forgetting, but they went and essentially said, you know, we will write our own stuff because we'll make it, you know, we know what we need to fix. And that's founded something called the Event Safety Alliance. I was involved with that. I've been involved with it about 4 or 5 years. I was, you know, significantly involved for a couple of years. But essentially that was also, that organization and a couple of others started to help connect people within the industry and understand that there was a safety conversation going on. In parallel, there's an organization called ESTA, which I'm going to get wrong, which is the Entertainment and Something Training Association or Technology Association. At least they'll probably send me a chat in a minute.
But sounds close enough.
Yeah, they started, they're, you know, a professional organization, and they started years ago writing ANSI standards for safety in the entertainment industry. And one of the first standards they wrote was outdoor structures for events, or one of the ones that gained traction, I should say. I'm sure it wasn't the first one they wrote. So they've been doing that. They started something called the ETCP, which is the Entertainment Technicians Certification Program, which gives certifications for rigging and electrical work within our industry. Entertainment Services and Technology Association, I think. It was mythologized as this obstructive organization that was only going to get in the way of things. And you've got to keep in mind that the majority of people in my industry literally, in many cases, ran away to join the circus. You know, they did not sign up for rules and regulations. You know what I mean? We had already been we'd actually done a bunch of stuff from a safety perspective on our own. And then, you know, when I came to you to get training at your training institute, it was my first kind of going, you know, I got to stop. If I'm going to defend OSHA, and if I'm going to defend what we're doing and be more methodical about it, I have to understand the standards better, and I have to understand how it's taught. And you know, present company accepted, I will say that a lot of people in our industry have experienced very poor OSHA training, right?
Sure.
Partly, you know, most people really don't resonate with the kind of point and click online stuff. And unfortunately, there is not really anybody in our industry. I know personally of about 4 or 5 of us, there may be a couple more that I'm not aware of, who actually are outreach trainers. So the majority of what people are getting trained by people who don't understand anything about our industry.
Right.
And one of the problematic challenges with that is, how do you relate something to something that literally, I mean, if I tell you that on one of the shows I used to do, we would load 60 semis worth of stuff into a hotel in Midtown Manhattan in 2.5 days. What in regular construction or general industry prepares you to talk about that? You can talk about the standards, but how do you give them context, right, for people? And so I'm really, really glad, because, you know, when I came to you and started studying the standards, it was an opportunity for me to learn how to apply them in the context of our industry. And that, you know, I mean, I'm sure, you know, I think one of your instructors told me, you know, the thing about, you know, no OSHA regulation is written because they felt like it. It's written because somebody got hurt or injured.
Yeah.
But by the same token, what's really interesting to me is I have to keep reminding people in my industry that these are minimum standards. These are minimum protections, and they're not unreasonable, right? I mean, I say to people, are you willing to ask anybody to do something where they may not make it home to the people they care about? Now, if the answer is yes, we probably need to get you therapy. If the answer is no, then we now know that we need to do something about that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Fascinating. I love it.